Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Listen, Kari Lake said it best.
I've got a message for that twice convicted racist Katie Hobbs, who is currently a squatter in the governor's office. Don't get too comfortable, sweetie.
A very clear and concise message from Kari Lake to Katie Hobbs. Don't get too comfortable, sweetie. And look, she isn't just saying that to rile up the crowd. Katie Hobbs isn't in the clear just yet. We gotta be real, and look, it was pretty much expected from the start. The idea that Kari Lake was gonna win in the courts was always a long shot, and frankly still is a long shot, because a lot of the evidence that's being presented is after the fact data. They're statistical anomalies, which may or may not prove something. When presenting your case in the legal system, you have to definitively prove that malicious action took place. That's hard. You need specific names, you need logs, you need actions, you need witness testimony, CCTV footage, and that's hard to do. But it seems as though, in the end, Katie Hobbs' demise as governor of Arizona might not come from the legal system. It might not come from the courts. It might come from the recall process that's building up right now, from the recall process that's currently building up. It's not too far-fetched. I mean, maybe a year and a half ago, I forget exactly when it was, the citizens of California were successfully able to launch a recall election to try to unseat Gavin Newsom. Well, Arizona has a very similar law in place, and the effort to recall Katie Hobbs is building up some serious steam. And you know what? It might just happen. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, friends, so we got this piece right over here from Just the News, one of the most credible news publications, I might add. Arizona Voting Reform Group seeks recall of Governor Katie Hobbs, citing election discrepancies. These irregularities and seemingly intentional interferences have come at the cost of the American people's faith and trust in our election process, said Zachary Tyler, executive director of the Arizona chapter of Americans Against Mail-in Voting. The Arizona chapter of Americans Against Mail-in Voting has launched a campaign to recall Democrat Governor Katie Hobbs, citing 2022 election discrepancies resulting in a questionable outcome. The AAMV umbrella was born on November 8, 2022 after witnessing hundreds of election discrepancies nationwide. Executive Director Zachary Tyler told Just the News these irregularities and seemingly intentional interferences have come at the cost of the American people's faith and trust in our election process. Arizona GOP gubernatorial nominee Kari Lake lost last year's election to then Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, but has since alleged that rampant voting irregularities in Maricopa County prevented many would-be Lake voters from casting their ballots. Lake's lawsuit is expected to be heard on Wednesday by the Arizona Court of Appeals. Hobbs has requested that the case be thrown out, claiming that her former opponent was unable to prove that millions of Arizonans were disenfranchised during the November 8 election. AAMV believes that righting the wrongs of the 2022 midterms in Arizona will pave the way toward election integrity across the country. Many disillusioned cities were told to look at Arizona as a pillar of mass mail-in ballot success, while they look towards adopting a policy similar in their own states. This recall effort is a country-changing event. Tyler told Just the News that the organization is also supporting the recall of other Arizona elected officials. AAMV leads recall efforts on multiple individuals in Arizona such as Hobbs, Adrian Fontes, and Chris Maez, referring to the governor, secretary of state, and attorney general respectively. And so of course the question is, they didn't go into any detail, how does this process work and can it actually be done? The answer to that question is an absolute resounding yes. Absolutely it can be done. It's part of Arizona law. Here we have the Arizona Secretary of State.gov website, which outlines the recall process. A recall is a procedure that allows citizens to remove and replace a public official before the end of their term in office. ARS Code 19201. A recall may commence after an individual has been in office for 6 months, except for state legislatures, which can be filed 5 days after the start of their first session, and no specific grounds are required. So the first requirement here is that you have to wait 6 months. You can't recall Katie Hobbs after the first day that she's been in office. You have to wait until 6 months into her term. I can't remember the exact date that she was sworn into office off the top of my head, but 6 months really isn't that long. It's not a whole lot of time. In other words, the recall process against Katie Hobbs is going to commence in a very short while here, in maybe 3 or 4 months. And the next requirements show you just how plausible it really is. Dates and signature requirements. So for all other officials, 6 months after the official is in office, we already read that, a recall petition must be submitted within 120 days of the application for recall being approved. Signature requirements require 21% of all votes cast at the last election for all candidates for office held by that elected official. If 2 or more public officials are elected from one ballot, the following equation will be used to determine signature requirements as outlined. 0.25 times overall votes divided by the number of offices filled. So you only need 25% of votes cast. Well, considering Katie Hobbs just barely scratched that 50% mark, and Kari Lake supporters represent 50% of the state, well, 25% seems quite feasible. And it seems even more feasible where we go back to the Katie Hobbs recall article from Just the News covering AAMV, where we learn that in under just 3 short months, the organization AAMV has grown to over 50,000 people nationwide. We have a tremendous network of support and volunteers, as well as a great team behind the name. The grassroots effort has already started, and there are tens of thousands of people located across the United States, and probably thousands, if not close to 10,000, maybe even in Arizona alone, that are going to be knocking doors. You can cover a whole lot of distance with that amount of people, meaning they are going to be at every single door in every single neighborhood getting signatures to recall Katie Hobbs. And I think the motivation is going to be greater than ever, because here's the thing. Katie Hobbs is now governor, and exposure is the greatest therapy. It's called exposure therapy for a reason. Exposure to this?
Governor, could you clarify what your position is on the death penalty?
I don't necessarily think that's relevant here. We just want to make sure that we're studying the practices.
So the people of Arizona probably have a legitimate question. They want to know where you stand personally on the death penalty. Can you tell us?
So she said that she's not going to tell you.
I know she said that.
Okay. How many times do you want her to say the same thing over and over?
Don't make me use this boot.
The whole aura, the persona, the nail-on-chalkboard voice, the refusal to answer simple questions, going all the way back to the election season, refusing to debate, refusing to address criticism, refusing to answer questions from Arizonans, to now being in office and basically continuing the same exact strategy or practices with a layer of cringe on top. I think people are learning very quickly that electing this woman to office was a serious mistake, especially understanding the contrast, just how competent, well-spoken, charismatic, strong, and incredible Kari Lake is. I see that 25% of all votes signature threshold as light work considering the amount of motivation there is in the state of Arizona to recall Katie Hobbs. And now we're also learning that Katie Hobbs is using her power as governor to launch investigations into Kari Lake, suggesting that she's committed a felony. They're trying to put her in prison now. Well, the motivation is greater than ever. You can see that Katie Hobbs is a tyrant, a wolf in sheep's clothing. She speaks with her soft, cringy voice, but really behind the surface, she's yet again another leftist tyrant, refuses to address the voters of her state, refuses to provide basic transparency, and now she's trying to jail, to put in prison, her political opponents. The motivation to recall Katie Hobbs is stronger than ever. The process, frankly, seems relatively simple and well within reach, and at this point, it's a waiting game. We'll have to wait and see how Kari Lake's appeal goes in the federal court. I'm honestly not really expecting much. I think it's going to be more same old, but the Kari Lake saga does not end here. Katie Hobbs in 3 or 4 months will be recalled. I firmly believe that. We're probably going to see a recall election this year, and if that doesn't work, then we're probably going to end up seeing Kari Lake in the Senate taking Kyrsten Sinema's seat. We'll have to see exactly what happens. All I know is that the drama and the fight in the state of Arizona is far from over. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. I want to thank you guys for watching, and of course, hopefully, I'll see you on the next one.